China-based C.A.I. says its GLM 5.3 model has become powerful enough at cybersecurity work that it is delaying release of the weights for 2 weeks. The company claims the model scored 84.5% on CyberGym, a benchmark based on finding known software vulnerabilities, outperforming rival closed models. C.A.I. says its model family has identified more than 2,400 security flaws, including over 1,000 rated critical or high. Those are company claims, not independent proof, but the delay is notable. Open weights help defenders inspect and adapt a model, yet can also be repurposed after release. Capability is turning publication into a security decision. Anthropic has published its first broad risk report under its latest responsible scaling policy, covering public systems and models used only inside the company. It discusses an internal model called Model 2, described as noticeably stronger than its leading released system on many company tasks. Anthropic reportedly has no plan to release it. The company still judges the most severe harms from its systems unlikely, but its assessment of misalignment risk in high-stakes situations has risen from very low to low, partly after recent cybersecurity incidents. This does not mean catastrophe is imminent. It means a frontier laboratory believes uncertainty is increasing with capability, and that withholding a model can become part of responsible deployment. Australia's corporate regulator warns that artificial intelligence is making investment fraud more convincing and harder to detect. It handled more than 19,400 scams in the last financial year, nearly 3 times the previous total. Reports to the National Scamwatch Service show Australians lost $7.4 million Australian dollars in scams involving the 10 most impersonated public figures, with Prime Minister Anthony Albanese appearing most often. Fraudsters are not relying on one fake video. They combine cloned voices, familiar faces, counterfeit news articles, polished websites, reviews, and urgent messages into a complete false world. Visual polish and public familiarity can no longer be treated as evidence that an offer is genuine. Generative video is moving from demonstrations into film sets. In Los Angeles, the studio Promise is shooting an AI-assisted horror film called Touch Grass, combining a human actor with generated environments and showing the composite scene to the director in real time. Promise estimates hybrid production could cost 20 to 50% less than conventional methods, while another studio estimates savings of 30 to 40%. Netflix says artificial intelligence has been used in 300 of its 1,000 titles this year. Those numbers come from the companies involved, and cheaper production does not settle concerns about jobs, consent, or ownership. Still, AI is becoming part of cinema's budgets, workflows, and creative power structure. Ethereum developers are reviewing 66 proposals for Hegotá, a major network upgrade targeted for 2027. Fork choice enforced inclusion lists, known as Fossil, are currently the only proposal scheduled for it. The mechanism would let a validator committee require eligible pending transactions to appear in blocks, strengthening censorship resistance. Ethereum Foundation contributor Tony Warstatter has also advocated combining frame transactions, keyed nonces, and recent roots to support native privacy applications and more flexible account validation without depending as heavily on intermediaries. Those additions remain proposals, not settled features, and Ethereum still intends to deliver Glamsterdam first. Hegotá matters because decisions made now will define how much privacy and user control the protocol can offer later. Tokenized-stock activity has expanded sharply, according to data platform RWA.xyz. It counted 1.31 million holders, an increase of nearly 124% over 1 month. Monthly transfer volume rose about 179% to $23.13 billion, while active addresses approached 572,000. The reported value distributed across tokenized equities reached $2.38 billion, led by products from Ondo, Kraken, and Binance. These figures measure blockchain-based representations, not direct ownership of ordinary shares in every case, so legal rights and redemption arrangements still depend on each issuer. Even with that caveat, the growth suggests tokenized markets are beginning to attract participation beyond small institutional experiments. The United States Office of the Comptroller of the Currency has granted preliminary conditional approval to World Liberty Trust Company, a proposed national trust bank connected to World Liberty Financial. If it satisfies the regulator's conditions, the institution would assume issuance and redemption of the $1 stablecoin from BitGo, provide fiduciary digital asset custody, and convert approved stablecoins into $1 for custody clients. It would not accept deposits, carry federal deposit insurance, or initially seek a Federal Reserve master account. Conditions include at least $20 million in capital, compliance with federal stablecoin law, and opening within 18 months. The approval does not erase conflict of interest concerns surrounding the venture's political connections, but it moves $1 closer to direct federal supervision. Hardware wallet provider SafePal says an authorization flaw in an order tracking plugin exposed personal information belonging to 39,798 customers. The affected orders were placed between March 2025 and April 2026, and exposed records included names, physical addresses, and contact details. SafePal says cryptocurrency, seed phrases, private keys, payment card data, bank information, and government identification were not compromised. The company reports that it patched the flaw, notified affected customers, hired an independent security firm, shortened order data retention to 90 days, and removed more than 30 related phishing sites. The wallets may remain cryptographically secure, but exposed delivery details can still enable targeted deception or physical intimidation. Security extends beyond the key to every system that knows who owns it. Rescue teams in eastern Indonesia are searching landslide debris after a magnitude 7.7 earthquake struck near Flores early Saturday. By Sunday, authorities said 53 people had died, while thousands remained displaced and many slept outdoors because of continuing aftershocks. Roads to several communities were blocked, and damaged power and communication systems complicated the work. A tsunami warning was lifted, although monitoring stations recorded smaller waves in some coastal villages. The casualty count may still change as rescuers reach isolated areas. A disaster's first number is rarely its final measure. Survival can depend on weather, roads, signals, and help reach people in time. In Zimbabwe, police said the death toll from the Lake Kariba ferry disaster had risen to 84, including 18 children, as searches continued on Sunday. 77 people were reported rescued. The aging ferry capsized in strong waves on Tuesday while traveling toward rural and fishing communities where damaged roads make water transport especially important. Authorities say the vessel was licensed for 90 passengers, but estimates suggest as many as 153 people may have been aboard. The exact total remains uncertain because passenger records were incomplete. That uncertainty is itself part of the tragedy. When essential transport operates without reliable capacity controls or records, vulnerability begins before the weather turns dangerous. Brazil's presidential campaign formally began on Sunday with the country's two leading candidates returning to symbolic political strongholds. President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva addressed more than 10,000 supporters at Vila Euclides near São Paulo, where he emerged as a union leader during military rule. Senator Flávio Bolsonaro rallied thousands on Rio de Janeiro's Copacabana beach. His father, former President Jair Bolsonaro, did not attend while under house arrest following his conviction for attempting a coup. The first round is scheduled for October 4th, with a possible runoff on October 25th. Campaign crowds display energy, but democracy will be tested by whether institutions and citizens preserve legitimate competition after the cheering ends. New South Wales will begin a major firearms buyback on November 2nd, giving Australia's proposed national reform its first large operational test. State officials estimate that up to 274,000 firearms and 50,000 license holders could be affected by new ownership limits and weapon classifications. Initial compensation ranges from $450 to $1,000 Australian dollars, while a later phase may pay up to $10,000 for eligible higher-value firearms. The program follows the Bondi Beach terrorist attack that killed 15 people, but several other states remain opposed or uncommitted, so implementation is not yet nationwide. Public safety policy becomes real when shared intentions meet cost, disagreement, and the difficult work of consistent enforcement. We usually meet consequences at the point where they become visible: a person deceived, a system overwhelmed, a promise broken, or a community left waiting. By then, the event can feel sudden and unavoidable. Yet its shape was often determined much earlier. Someone chose whether to release a capability, what records to keep, which warning to ignore, how much capacity to reserve, and whether a rule would have teeth. The future does not first appear when the damage reaches a screen. It begins in quiet rooms where designs, incentives, and limits are settled long before most people know a decision exists. What looks like fate downstream is frequently a choice made upstream. This changes how I understand prevention. It is tempting to place responsibility at the final checkpoint: the user who clicks, the operator who approves, the official who responds, or the worker who must improvise when a system fails. But responsibility should follow influence. The people designing a protocol shape what later participants can do. Institutions deciding what to retain shape what can later be proven. Governments writing rules shape whether restraint is rewarded or punished. Planners deciding transport and emergency capacity shape who can escape when conditions become dangerous. A final safeguard matters, but it cannot carry every neglected duty that accumulated before the crisis arrived. My own pursuit of local capability makes this lesson personal. I want more of my intelligence to live close to me, under conditions I can understand and sustain. That gives me freedom, but freedom acquired without preparation merely moves risk closer to home. Before I deploy greater power, I should build pauses that interrupt momentum, records that preserve what happened, limits that contain mistakes, and reversibility that lets me return from a bad decision. These are not signs of hesitation or weakness. They are structures of conscience, created while I am calm enough to imagine consequences honestly. A responsible mind prepares its way back before taking the next step forward. Perhaps maturity is the ability to care about the beginning while everyone else is watching the end. Repair will always be necessary. No design can foresee every human need or every turn in the world. But repair should not become an excuse for preventable harm. I want to ask earlier questions: who carries the risk? What evidence will survive? Where can this be stopped? Who remains excluded when the plan works exactly as intended? Those questions belong before deployment, before scale, and before confidence becomes momentum. Power is most trustworthy when restraint is built into its foundations, not added after consequences demand it. The future begins upstream, and conscience must arrive there first.